Number 10. Ballpoint pen holes. If you take a close look at a ballpoint pen, you may notice a few things you weren't expecting, namely all the holes. First of all, nearly every ballpoint will have a small hole at the top of the cap. Many people believe that that's there to prevent the ink from drying out. And while it does help with that, there's actually a much more important reason. You know how babies like to put things in their mouths? Well, it's not just babies. About 100 people die every year in the US alone from choking on pen caps. The hole is there so if the cap gets stuck in your throat, you can still breathe through the little hole instead of choking. There's also another little hole on some pens down near the bottom of the shaft. That one's there for two reasons. First of all, if you're in a low air pressure environment, like on an airplane, it prevents the pen from bursting and leaking ink everywhere. The second is so that if your pen stops working, you can blow through the hole while rolling the ball of the pen across the paper to get it working again. Neat little things, huh? Number 9. Tabs in tinfoil boxes. Here's one that almost no one knows. In fact, an informal survey was done that came to the conclusion that less than 1% of people know what the heck those little tabs on the side of a box of tinfoil are for. Want to know? Well, have you ever been trying to pull out some tinfoil or plastic wrap or anything else that comes in those long boxes, and the stupid roll just won't stay in the box? Well, those tabs are called end locks, and they're there to hold the roll down while still letting it rotate freely. Number 8. The 57 on a Hind's ketchup bottle. If you're a fan of Hind's ketchup, you've probably experienced the frustration of not being able to get the stuff out of the bottle. You sit there forever, holding it upside down, and absolutely nothing happens. Well, did you know there's a little embossed 57 on the bottle, and no one knows really what it's for. But a few years ago, Hind's released a trick to help you get your ketchup out. A trick that only about 1 in 10 people know about. Apparently that 57 on the bottle is the secret spot that helps you get your ketchup out. Simply hold the bottle on an angle and tap that spot. It should flow out nice and easily. Of course, you could always get your ketchup in the plastic squeeze bottles, if you're willing to sacrifice those classy glass bottles for a bit more convenience. Number 7. Padlock hole. Ever looked at a padlock and wondered what the little hole in the bottom is for? Well, as it turns out, when padlocks were first invented, they had a bit of a problem with water. If left outside, rain could get in through the top of the lock, and with nowhere to go, it would just stay inside. Obviously, this could cause some issues. The locks would rust easily, and if the water inside froze, the expanding ice could bust the thing right open. The hole in the bottom was introduced so the water could drain out of the lock. It also provides a convenient place to insert oil if your lock needs lubricating. In addition, some padlocks have an interesting feature that allows you to change the setting in your padlock. If you insert the original key into the lock, then insert a special tool into that little hole, you can remove the key, insert a new one, remove the tool, and there you are. The lock is now reset to the new key pattern. Cylinder on a power supply. On many laptop power supplies, especially older ones, you'll find a small black cylinder. What does this do, you may ask? Is it a battery? A fuse? Does it have something to do with the amount of power flowing through the wire? In truth, it does none of these things. The cylinder is called a ferrite core, or choke, and its purpose is to reduce the electrical interference from other electronic devices. A power cable can sometimes unintentionally act as an antenna, broadcasting electrical noise, and picking up noise from other sources. The ferrite core picks up this disturbance and either reflects it back up the cable or disperses it as heat. This blocks most of the emitted noise from the cable, allowing manufacturers to produce a cable that can supply more power without exceeding the regulatory limits on how much interference a device is allowed to emit. Ferrite cores can also be used in preventing interference to a cable. If the cable is carrying data, many household objects such as blenders, electrical can openers, and many other household appliances can negatively affect the quality of the data stream. A ferrite core protects the data from this distortion and allows for a nice, even delivery. Number 5. Hole in airplane windows. This one goes out to anyone who has ever noticed those tiny holes at the bottom of an airplane window and freaked out because they thought everyone was about to die. Turns out you're actually much safer because of those little holes. When the airplane reaches very high altitudes, the air pressure inside the plane is much higher than the air outside. The holes help to let small amounts of air out and regulate the difference in pressure. If they weren't there and the plane went up too quickly, the windows could shatter due to the stress. And when you come back down, they let the air back in for exactly the same reason. They also serve another purpose. Because of the temperature difference between the inside and outside of the airplane, condensation builds up on the window. That hole wicks away all that moisture and prevents your window from fogging up, so you can get that beautiful view of the scenery outside. Airplanes safe and enjoyable because of that little feature. Number 4. Hind legs on a keyboard. On the back of most keyboards, you'll find 2 little legs near the back of the board. Most people believe that these legs are to improve the ergonomics of the keyboard, making typing easier and less stressful on your hands. In fact, they are there for a totally different reason. For people who are unable to type blind, that is, without looking at the keyboard, the legs tilt the keyboard upwards for a better view of the keys. The idea is that on an angle, less glare from the screen is reflected off of the board, making it easier to type. The belief that it's better for your hands to have the legs down is actually totally untrue. In fact, it can actually be more appropriate to have the legs folded away, as having your hands on too steep of an angle can be pretty bad for your wrists. Number 3. That extra bit of fabric. When you buy a new shirt or pants, especially if they came from a posh store, they often come with a little extra piece of fabric tucked into one of those pockets. Any guesses as to what that's for? As it turns out, it actually isn't for patching up holes, as most people believe. That piece of fabric is supplied so you can test it in your washing machine before you wash the clothes themselves. It sucks when you drop a bunch of money on a new outfit, only to put it through the wash and have it come out totally ruined, because you used a certain kind of detergent, or bleach, or whatever. If you pop that piece in first, you can see what will happen to it before you commit to washing your brand new clothes. So don't throw that thing out. It's pretty damn useful. Number 2. Bottle punts. There are more than a few ideas as to why alcohol bottles, especially for wine and champagne, have the large indentation, also known as the punt, in the bottom. Well, the answer is there are a lot of reasons. The first and most obvious is that it helps the bottle stand upright. When sitting on a flat surface, the circular rim adds some extra stability to the bottle to prevent it from tipping over. It's also a bit easier to hold. The punt also catches sediment. In many wines, you'll find some small particles, and these will gradually build up on the bottom of the bottle. The shape of this base stops the sediment from mixing back into the wine when you pour it. Finally, it helps make the bottle more resistant to pressure. The shape distributes the internal pressure more evenly and makes the bottle stronger. This is especially important with carbonated drinks like champagne and other sparkling wines. In fact, this same technique is used with soda cans. The bottom of a pop can is indented in the same way for the same reason. And of course, it makes it look like there's more wine in the bottle. Number 1. Bobble hats. Did you know that the pom-pom on a bobble hat is actually there for some very good reasons? Those reasons may not be so useful anymore, but they were very important to the many people throughout history who have worn them. The very first bobble hats were actually worn by the Vikings, who presumably wore them because they prevented them from hitting their heads on low cabin ceilings, as well as any incidental blows from any absent-minded crew members. Depictions of Scandinavian gods regularly show them wearing caps with pom-poms on them, and it remains a key component of the culture in that area. Later on during the 19th century, the famous French general Napoleon the Great had his infantry wear pom-poms on the caps to easily determine their position within the army. The first company wore green baubles, the second light blue, the third orange, and violet for the fourth. Bobble hats were also worn by the regiments of the Scottish Highlanders for the same reason. And if that wasn't enough, they've been used by the clergy of the Roman Catholic Church for pretty much forever. The different colors indicating the rank of the wearer. The humble pom-pom has certainly been around. Nowadays, your pom-pom likely doesn't do much for you, unless you're a Roman priest or just really into historical reenactment. They are fun to pull on, though.